We, of course, play Newcastle United tomorrow. It's a game where Newcastle are going to be coming into it 3 wins on the bounce, expecting to try and trouble West Ham. And listen, they've got players to do it. And that recruitment in January was really crucial for them. I don't think when you're looking at some of them in Chris Wood that he's necessarily been a barnstormer, but you've got players there. Bruno to come into their midfield, obviously sent Maximan there previously. Dan Burns giving them a little bit of solidity. I do feel that they come into this game defensively. I think they've improved. I think they've got a structure that could trouble West Ham on the counter. And like we always say, West Ham at home against a team nearer the relegation places, we've got to be dominating the ball and we've got to be creating chances. So it does pose threats. And you look at the Leicester game, albeit we got a good point in the end, there were areas of the pitch where I felt slightly concerned. And right back's one of them. And this, of course, this is why the title is titled Big Selection Choices to Make to Key Areas. And Soufal, I love Soufal. He's a fantastic player. He's been a brilliant signing for West Ham. And last season and at parts this season, defensively, he's been superb 1v1. That's been his biggest strength. And you add to that the quality of delivery that he has going forward. But for me, in recent weeks, and particularly on Sunday, I just felt 1-to-1. I don't know whether it's a mentality thing. I think his positioning is good, but the fear of a player getting in behind, the lack of aggressiveness in certain situations, and also in him retaining the ball further up the pitch. And we know how West Ham play. Of course, we all do. And if Newcastle is sitting in a slightly aggressive lower block, you know that Soufal's going to be getting the ball on that right-hand side, slightly towards the centre line, and he's going to have to progress it. If Newcastle feel with someone like St. Maximan, who, albeit appreciate he doesn't track back very well, is aggressive in trying to win that ball, and maybe they try and press us in certain wide areas, then I'm concerned. So I do feel that into this game, particularly with the player of St. Maximan that Newcastle do have, that Ben Johnson is a really good choice. Whether David Moyes will go for it, I'm really not sure. It was interesting for me to see Fredericks has been the player that he's chosen as a deputy in recent weeks. I don't agree with it at all. I think Fredericks has been good in games. He has a purpose. I think he has performed to a good enough level at points, but if we look at him technically as a player, I still think there are defensive frailties there, albeit he's improved. And I don't believe his quality in possession is strong enough either. And I think Ben, whilst he isn't, or wasn't at least on the surface of it, a better deliverer of the ball than Soufal, I trust him more defensively. I think he gives us more assurance, particularly when West Ham are playing slightly further up the pitch. And I think on the ball, he's competent enough. He's good enough with both feet to get out of those situations if Newcastle try and press us in those wide areas. So that's the first element of this. The second element of this is Mikel Antonio. And a big part of this game is how can West Ham be creative enough with that front four? How can we introduce more movement into our game? Who are the personnel that will fit behind the number 9? And I've heard conversations online about Bowen starting instead of Mickey. And it is something that I would like to see. I would. I think we are lacking not just from Antonio. I do think that system-wise, it comes the basis from Antonio, and that's not necessarily a criticism, albeit he hasn't been great. It's just that when he fatigues, the rest of the attacking midfielders don't work. And the arguments before about Jarrod Bowen playing the false 9 completely validated. I think when you're comparing an informed, energized Antonio at 9 to Bowen, who's played on that right-hand side, you pick Antonio and you allow Bowen to play in his more natural position. But where we're at in terms of movement, in terms of how Newcastle could play against us slightly deeper, Bowen may be able to offer something different. He may be able to get into half spaces. He may be able to stretch it. We saw it against Chelsea when he played in a front two. And Antonio, for me, in that game wasn't necessarily at the peak of his powers, but by having players and advancing players, even if it's another attacking midfielder alongside Bowen in certain moments of transition, that could hurt Newcastle enough for West Ham to create. Do I think we'll see it? No. Do I think Bowen should play false 9 normally? Absolutely not. I don't agree with the idea that he should deputise as the number 9 and be our second choice striker. For me, he shouldn't. He's intelligent enough to play in central areas. It's fantastic to have an option of him further wide. But maybe in a game like this where West Ham, I expect us to be on the ball, to dominate possession, his movement or his energy just could give us something else. But naturally, I'm sitting here saying this, it depends how you play with him, and it depends how the attacking midfielders play in and around him. If we're going to play like we use Mikel Antonio, it won't work. If you're using Jarrod Bowen against Dan Burn, it won't work in that sense. So West Ham have to play a different type of game plan in order for that. And I've only really seen it in spells in the Europa League. And this is a different kettle of fish, if we're perfectly honest. So those are the two key elements of this game and the two key components that I think people will be interested to see. In terms of how West Ham can play, and I've alluded to it there, we are going to be dominating the ball. Our fullbacks are going to have to get further forward. They are going to have to play high and wide. We're going to have to stretch that Newcastle back four as far as possible. And there's no doubt for me that with the quality that we have, and albeit I know Souček is really struggling at the minute, I think he's a player that's fatigued, if I'm honest. And I don't think that's helping his technical quality on the ball. But if West Ham are able to get the fullbacks further forward, or at least Johnson and Creswell can keep the ball in more advanced areas, just to cause Newcastle problems, just to prevent them from trying to commit too many men forward in winning the ball, then maybe we can create chances. And that, of course, comes down to the attacking midfield. Can they play in those spaces between the centre-backs? Can they force them into areas that they don't want to be? Naturally, you look at Newcastle without Trippier on that left-hand side. A lot of people have said this. There's a great chance for West Ham to overload that area. There really is. Creswell can get further forward. We know that he likes to overlap. In terms of that player on the left-hand side, Benrahma had an impact in the last game. You could play him there. His movement has to be good enough. His end product has to be good enough. But there's certainly a vulnerability that I feel is going to happen. You look at their left-hand side. I think Dan Burn, as good as he is in the air, there's an opportunity to get him on the half turn. So there's a chance in that sense. And you look at their left-hand side as well with someone like Target. Again, a player that I feel was good last season, 1v1. But this season, I feel there's an opportunity for West Ham to overload and get at. So at the end of the day, I think West Ham have to do what West Ham have to do in games like this and commit men forward and be quality in possession to keep the ball. But I cannot stress this enough, movement. Movement has to be paramount to the way that West Ham create chances in this game. And of course, you've got to keep possession to create chances. But when you look at it, man for man against their defence, against some of our attacking players, even Souček, if he can get further forward and into the box, West Ham can create and West Ham can score. And I'd love us to get back to that state. On a positive note, because it does sound like I'm ranting a little bit, listen, Diop and Dawson were fantastic in the last game. They really, really were. They read the situation perfectly. I thought the relationship between the two, we know Diop's assist for Bowen's goal was very impressive and probably a bit of an insight into when Diop's mentality is spot on. He does have ability, albeit very, very fragmented, and it does feel like I have been losing the plot with him. But Zuma could come back in, and you feel that with I think Dawson and Zuma would be my preference there. There is enough solidity there for me for West Ham to play further up the pitch and deal with a counter-attacking threat. Chris Wood isn't someone that's necessarily going to trouble Craig Dawson or Zuma to an extent where I feel that they're going to get exploited in behind. It'll be an aerial battle, and of course that will suit both of them. I've been very careful with my words because you never know with Chris Wood against West Ham. Absolutely, that's the case. And then you look at Declan and the role that Declan can play in this game. And I know he loves to get further forward. And I think there's been more of an impetus on him to play further forward because West Ham just haven't been creating enough. And fair play to him. We know he's got the technical ability. We know he's got the drive. We know he can beat players successfully. And we've even seen him create for others. But just that balance is so key for West Ham keeping Newcastle pending. If West Ham can maintain the pressure, and this is where I feel that Declan could absolutely excel. And we never really feel like we see it enough because we play a double pivot. So either we sit slightly deeper or Dec's instructed to sit between the two centre-backs, or he's allowed to get further forward in isolation. But if Declan Rice is able to scan and get into Newcastle's third and West Ham are putting enough pressure on and he's retaining and he's recycling, that's where the pressure will tell against a lower block team. That's where West Ham can excel. And Declan Rice, of course, has got the ability to do that. So I think it's a game that, again, like I say, West Ham are expected to win. I don't think it's an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, given their momentum, given some of their personnel, given the way that they'll play, given the way that West Ham, in an attacking sense, haven't looked quite at it. But nonetheless, we've got the personnel with the right game plan and hopefully with the week off, or at least with a few days off. It seems like we've been playing week in, week out and midweeks. We've got the opportunity to plan appropriately. And hopefully these players are fit and they're ready to go. And there is, of course, the movement in there and they're re-energized and we can get the win. And that would be a big win. And I know people will say, well, you're playing a relegation side, you should win. Irrespective, look at the table. West Ham picking up points here at important moments, building momentum as we can. Given the fixture list now, we've got a little bit of a break until, of course, the FA Cup and then the Europa League. Just keep building West Ham. Keep building and show a performance that the players can build on. Because I don't doubt this team's enthusiasm, grit, work rate, even quality to nick something, a magic moment. We've seen that over the past month or so, but I would really like to see an accomplished, consistent performance over the 90 minutes where we can come away and go, right, and we go again and we go again. Of course, it's tough on the players. They played a hell of a lot of football, but I am very hopeful. My score prediction for this one is 2-1 West Ham. There'll be a set piece in there for me. And of course, I fancy Magic Man Jarrod Bowen, the star boy. He's an absolute pleasure to watch at the minute. He's an unbelievable football player. And fingers crossed, he keeps the form rolling. So thanks so much for joining me. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the West Ham Way if you're watching and you are new. I'll be back after the game. I'm not convinced it will be on the day because it's an early kickoff. And there's bits and bobs floating around, drinks after the game, Khan versus Kell Brook. So the things that we will be doing, but nonetheless, Sunday will be the debrief as such. And hopefully we're sitting here and we've got 3 points. And when we move on to Wolves, which is a hugely tough game. So take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll all speak shortly.